Hi, I'm Jaclyn.
And I'm Courtney, and this is Caffeinated Crimes.
Welcome back. We hope you guys are doing well today. I personally am very sore today because Courtney recommended this HIIT workout.
It was brutal.
Which I did do after running, which probably wasn't the best idea, but yes, it is brutal. My thighs are sore, my abs are sore, my triceps are sore. So I'm just falling apart over here. But it was a good workout, and I appreciated the recommendation, but I'm also dying now.
Yeah, it was really brutal, and I did it, first, and then I went to do some dance, and I was trying to, move my legs, and I was like, I don't know if I can. So, it was brutal.
Yeah, I was walking down the stairs with the dogs yesterday, and I'm, doing, a squat walk because the top of my thighs are so sore. I'm just gonna fall down these stairs if I don't take it slow and take my time. So, yeah, but it was fun. It was nice. Courtney, how's your week going? Anything else fun?
It's going good. I do have a funny Kevin story that I haven't told Jaclyn yet either. So, it was Friday night, I think. I was sitting and I was, editing the BTK episode, the part 1. And I was, playing it, and Kevin is you guys talk over each other way too much. And he's like, you can't understand. And I was like, Kevin, I have to drag the audio. I hadn't drugged the audio yet. So it was me trying to find our places and then move it.
So it's just completely unedited.
So it would be two different conversations. It was 2 different conversations. And I was like, Kevin, no, all the audio is off right now. It's not.
Yeah, you're no, we're not there yet. We're getting there. It's fine.
Or I'll cut out a part and then one of us will laugh and he's like, what's so funny? I'm like, it's from earlier. It's a different spot. Just don't worry about it.
Yeah, I edit with headphones in so Andrew doesn't have to listen to the monstrosity that is us unedited. So.
Well, Kevin's kind of funny because he'll be like, oh, what happened? He'll start asking questions about, the case. And he's like, oh, is it this? Did this happen?
You're like, why don't you just listen to the episode? Does Kevin listen?
No.
Andrew doesn't either.
Well, he keeps saying that he's going to listen. And he's like, well, okay, first off, also, he was with me when I, listened through, the first 3 episodes, the listen through.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, I listened. I was like, Kevin, we've released, 10 episodes since then. He's like, oh, you did? What do you think I've been doing? But he said he's not been in a podcast mood. Oh. So at least he's not listening to any podcasts, but...
Oh, no, Andrew listens to a lot of podcasts. He just doesn't like ours. No, it's not that he doesn't like us. He just doesn't like true crime in general, so,
Yeah, one day Kevin was like, I'm going to try the Joe Rogan podcast. And I was like, what about my podcast? And he's like... I'll get to it.
He's like, oh yeah, it's on. Well, Andrew did subscribe, so he downloads us every week, so you know.
I mean, Kevin is a Patreon, so I guess I can't give him too much shit.
That's true. Yeah, when I'm editing, I'll laugh at something, and Andrew's like, oh, what are you laughing at? And I'm like, just my podcast, just laughing at me, don't worry.
Laughing at himself.
And I'm like, man, I hope other people find us as entertaining as we do, because I find editing very entertaining, because I'm like, that's so funny, and yeah. I don't know.
Honestly, the parts we edit out are hilarious, too. We've been talking about how we should have been keeping it, when we mess up, and we're like, I make funny noises.
Just put together a whole compilation of our noises and cuss words, and where we try to combine the first 2 letters of 2 separate words, and which happens a lot, apparently.
Or motorcycles.
Oh, boy.
Drag race down my street.
So many motorcycles.
There was 3 in the episode I recorded. 3, guys. And it was only an hour and a half episode.
Yeah, I don't know what these guys are doing on their motorcycles, but it's kind of obnoxious, and I kind of wish they would stop. But
they do it all day. It's annoying.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you guys don't care about that, but here we are.
So I do want to give a little true crime news situation. It's not very positive, I'm sorry, but it did happen in Richmond this week, so I feel the need to kind of bring it up. Maybe one day we'll have more information on this and we can kind of cover it in more detail. So this week on May 13th at 10:13 in the morning, a man found a body of a 22-year-old woman on a bike trail here in Richmond. So that's super sad. Her name was Dominique Danzy, and police did arrest an 18-year-old a couple of days later. I don't really want to give any information because it's, an early arrest, so I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but someone has been arrested for the robbery and murder, but she was just jogging on this bike trail and someone found her body. So that's super sad, and we just want to remember her and her family.
Yeah, definitely. It's really hard. Something kind of similar happened here in Knoxville a few years ago. We have a bunch of greenways here so people can go and run and bike and all that, and a woman was walking and this man just walked up and stabbed her and killed her.
Yeah.
And I knew her because she came into the library I worked as a patron, and I had just seen her 2 days before, so it was it's crazy. She did not know this man. He just came up, stabbed her, and then walked away. They did catch him because there were people everywhere just being what just happened? But
which is also so crazy.
Yeah, because you have the designated spots where you're I can go run down this road, I can bike, I can do whatever, and it's so unfair when people take away that safety of it. So if you're one of those people, fuck you.
Yes.
That's all I gotta say.
My aunt also runs, and she said she was running on this trail one day, and this guy approached her and asked to borrow her cell phone. I can't remember what story he gave her, but she was oh, I'm sorry, I don't have my phone on me. And then he was ma'am, I'm an off-duty police officer, please don't tell people that you don't have your phone on you, because I guess there was a rapist in the area, and he was kind of staking out the area, and I don't know if he approached her to teach her a lesson, or maybe he wasn't even a cop, maybe he was just, I don't know, who knows, but
yeah,
it's still very scary. And as someone who runs a lot, thinking that that's not a safe activity is just so scary.
Yeah, because my thing is too with the cell phone, a lot of times when people are can I use your phone, I'm no.
Yeah, no,
I don't, you lie, and you're I don't have it on me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just really scary. And because we have our apartment attaches to a greenway, but a lot of the times there's only one route I'll take, because I'm if I'm not with Kevin, I don't feel safe going this route. And I kind of noticed too, yesterday we went on a walk, and it was there was no girls just by themselves, and I've never seen girls just by themselves on this trail unless they have a massive dog with them.
Yeah.
But you see the men running all over the place, so it's just crazy to think it's just those little things I notice where it's oh, it's just so different between genders. Not that the men are bad or anything for running by themselves, it's just different.
It's something that they don't think about. Andrew and I have had this conversation when we are looking at different neighborhoods trying to decide where to buy a house, and there's some areas that I'm ooh, I just don't really feel as safe in this area, and Andrew's what are you talking about? It feels fine to me. And I'm you've never...
Yeah.
And it's not that he's intentionally overlooking it, it's just he's never thought about that. Or sometimes we'll be walking in an area of town that is a little bit rougher, and so I eyes straight ahead, I'm not looking at my phone, I'm constantly just kind of being aware of my surroundings, and Andrew's 10 feet behind me scrolling on Twitter, and it's just and he's why are you walking so fast? And I'm I'm going to my destination, and it's just something that he's never thought of oh, let me just be aware of what's going on around me, and that just comes instinctually to women, I feel
Yeah, it definitely does.
So this week, this was a special request from my dad, so this one's for you, Dad.
Shout out, Dad.
Yes. And he requested this after our first or second episode, I think. It was super early, so
yeah,
we're finally getting to it.
One of my favorite, that's a weird word to use, but one that I've always been really interested in. Tiffany used to call me this person.
And this person,
she said I was our
this person is Lizzie Borden. So I'm sure we have all heard the lovely rhyme that I'm going to say for you today before we jump in, because it's not accurate, but I'm sure we've all heard it.
It's not accurate, yeah.
Nope.
Lizzie Borden took an axe
and gave her mother 40 whacks.
When she saw what she had done,
she gave her father 41.
Ba-ba-da-da.
Yep. So, again, like we said, that's not accurate. one, we don't know if it was Lizzie Borden. We'll get into that. But two, the number of whacks is not accurate. But they were killed by an axe.
And three, it was not her mother.
Yes.
It was her stepmother.
Correct. So, we're going to get into all of those lovely details. The majority of our information came from the book The Trial of Lizzie Borden by Kara Robertson. It is a fairly new book. I think it came out like last year. It's a very good book. It's very like detailed and specific and like has a lot of quotes and transcripts and those sorts of things. But it is super interesting. It's pretty long, but it's really good. We also got information from a CBS News article, biography.com, a Mental Floss article, LA Times article, Herald News, and Time.com, as well as the Fall River's Lizzie Borden website, Tattered Fabric. Alright, so on the morning of August 4th, 1892, at 92 2nd Street in Fall River, Massachusetts, a woman named Adelaide Churchill was standing outside and watched her 32-year-old neighbor, Lizzie Borden, standing very peculiarly outside her house. So Mrs. Churchill called to her and asked her what was the matter. And Lizzie responded, quote, "Oh, Mrs. Churchill, do come over. Someone has killed Father." Okay.
All right.
So, will do. So, most of the police force was away that day for their annual picnic. And violent crime was super rare in Fall River, so the police sent a single patrolman to the house because I guess they didn't know what was going on. They just heard like domestic disturbance or whatever. So they sent this single patrolman. His name was George Allen, and he ran to the Borden house in 4 minutes.
Dang, dude.
So, which I just thought was funny because, like, oh, you get a call and you're just gonna run on down there.
Makes me think of like a video game when you're like, oh, I gotta go to the store, and you start running in the video game.
Right. And I'm there. So, you know, obviously it was a pretty small town as well, because you can't run very far in 4 minutes. So, when he got there, he found that Andrew Borden had been murdered by an axe, and he found no disturbances inside the house. No one inside or outside the house reported seeing anything unusual. His daughter Lizzie reported that she was in the barn looking for a piece of iron to make a sinker for a fishing line, and that she came back to the house after she heard a strange noise, and that's when she found him. She said that her stepmother Abby had received a note from a sick friend that morning and had left to go visit them. And her sister Emma had been away for 2 weeks visiting friends in Fairhaven. So the police were like, okay, well, we need to go find Abby because her husband has just been murdered. Like, we need to notify her, and we need to make sure that she's okay. So their maid, Bridget Sullivan, suggests calling Abby's sister, and then Lizzie volunteers that she thought maybe Abby had returned and gone upstairs. So this is the first kind of red flag.
Like, kind of weird, yeah.
Like, you didn't mention that before, and now you're like, oh, well, actually, she might be in the house. I don't know.
Just go up the stairs. Look in the first bedroom. Just
Right? Go check over here. See what you find. So the neighbor, Mrs. Churchill, and the maid, Bridget, went upstairs to look for Abby, and so they had just like cleared the second landing, so they're like they haven't even gotten to the floor yet, and they see the body of Abby Borden face down in the guest room. So they're like, well, okay, we got a double homicide now. So when Mrs. Churchill relayed this information to Lizzie and the police, Lizzie said, quote, "Oh, I shall have to go to the cemetery myself," which I just thought was kind of an interesting response to your stepmother also being murdered after your father was murdered.
It's like, oh, huh, okay.
Oh, well, I guess I gotta do this all myself. Just add that to my to-do list.
I'm just so busy. Busy Lizzie. God, I hate myself. I could not say it.
Oh, goodness. So, Andrew Borden was married to a woman named Sarah, and they had 2 daughters named Emma and Lizzie. So, Sarah passed away when they were both fairly young. They were both children, and Andrew married Abby Borden 2 years later. So Emma and Lizzie didn't really get along with Abby. At first things were okay, and they did call her mother, but then as they got older, they started calling her Mrs. Borden instead. And there was a lot of conflict between them because Andrew appeared to give more power to his daughters than to his wife. So everybody got an allowance in the house. So like the daughters got the same amount of allowance as his wife got, but his wife had to use her allowance to go towards household expenses, whereas his daughters could spend whatever they wanted on whatever.
Yeah.
And Lizzie also was irritated with her father because he was very wealthy, but he was also frugal, which is probably part of why he was wealthy.
Yeah.
But, so they lived in a small house on 2nd Street that didn't have any indoor plumbing, which at that time, a lot of places did. You know, it wasn't unusual to not have it, but with how wealthy they were, it was definitely unusual.
Yeah.
And Lizzie really wanted to live in a house on the hill, which was like the place to live in Fall River, according to Lizzie.
Yeah, it was like the bougie place.
Yes. So there was some like animosity there as far as like money, and Abby's father died and left his house to his wife and his other daughter, Sarah. This is not the Sarah that is Emma and Lizzie's mom. Just want to make that clear, because
a lot of Sarahs.
I myself got confused when I was reading the story, so I'm like, let me make sure that's spelled out. So his wife Jane wanted to sell her half, but Sarah could not afford to purchase it. So Andrew bought the second half of the house in Abby's name so that Sarah and her husband could live there. So he's like, okay, like, I have the money, let me help you out, like, I'll buy it. Abby technically owns it, but it's just so her sister can have somewhere to live and doesn't have to move out. Because she had already been...
Yeah, which is really nice.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's a nice guy. It's a nice thing to do. Emma and Lizzie did not think this was a nice thing to do. So, in their mind, their dad bought Abby property, and he's never bought them property. So they're like, how dare you give her more than us?
But, I mean, also, the house they lived in, there was, like, 3 floors, quite a few rooms. I'm like...
Yeah, it was a huge house.
Like, you're fine, guys. You're good.
Yeah. Yeah, right. And you don't work. You don't have to pay for anything. Like, you just live a life of leisure. You just don't have indoor plumbing in a not so great street of the city, apparently.
Yeah.
So to try to make things right, Andrew transfers property of equal value into Emma and Lizzie's name. So he's like, okay, like, I own this property. I'll sign it over to you. Now you guys have property. Abby has property. Everybody's happy. But no, they were still kind of mad. That didn't really make up for them. And so after this happened, the maid Bridget said that she would serve dinner twice every night because Emma and Lizzie refused to eat in the same room as Andrew and Abby. So she would cook the same dinner.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, like, this is a bit dramatic, guys. So she would, like, serve dinner to Andrew and Abby and then serve dinner to Emma and Lizzie. So in June of 1891, so this is a little over a year before the murders occurred, there was a break-in at the house, and all that was stolen was some sentimental jewelry, some cash, and some gold from Andrew and Abby's bedroom. And so this happened in the middle of the day while Emma, Lizzie, and Bridget Sullivan were all home. And so the Borden house is a very interesting layout. So basically all of the upstairs bedrooms just connect to one another. So there's not like a hallway where each of the rooms are separate. It's like the bedrooms are a hallway, and so you like have to go through one room to get to the other room, and each of the rooms can be locked from the outside so that you can't get through, basically.
Yeah.
And so with this layout, it was very unusual that someone that did not have access to the whole home would have gotten into their bedroom.
Yeah, so is it like at the end, like you have to go through a bunch of bedrooms?
I think so.
To get to it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other bedrooms were locked, and one of those bedrooms was Lizzie's bedroom, and all 3 of them were home.
Yeah, and I also was like reading that they locked all the doors like frequently. Like it was like they'd be like, oh, well, I can't go to my room because it's locked and I have to go downstairs to get the key or something like that.
Yes, like
reading stuff like that. So it's like...
They said every morning that they would lock all of the bedrooms upstairs and leave the keys downstairs, which I don't really know why, but...
Yeah, I thought it was weird. I mean, it makes a little bit more sense with them all being connected, but it's also like, I mean, what does it matter?
I don't know if it was because of the animosity between them
That's
that nobody
true.
trusted each other, so they're like, we're just going to lock everything.
And especially after this, they're probably like, nope, lock, lock, lock.
Yeah, because with this situation, like, they're fairly certain that it was someone in the house. And when the police showed up, Lizzie was showing them through the house, and she showed them a lock on a downstairs door that had been forced open. But like we said before, the police noticed that the thief could have only entered Andrew and Abby's bedroom by going through Lizzie's bedroom.
Yeah.
And Lizzie said to police, quote, "I'm afraid the police will not be able to find the real thief." So, just kind of interesting. And Andrew Borden also suspected his daughter because he called off the investigation and he asked them not to release any information to the newspapers. So I think he's fairly certain that it was someone in the house, because why else would you say, no, I just don't want you to pursue this?
Especially being like, somebody was in my house. Like,
and went through all of these rooms while my children were home. Like, if you really thought that, I'm sure you would want an investigation.
Yeah.
So in May of 1892, so this is a couple of months before the murders, a dressmaker reports that she was altering a dress for Lizzie, and she had referred to Abby as Lizzie's mom, and she says that Lizzie said, quote, "Don't say that to me. She is a mean, good-for-nothing thing."
Oh.
Yeah. So she's like, this is not my mom, this is my stepmom, I don't want anything to do with her, I don't like her. So just kind of setting up the scene that there's a lot of issues going on in this family.
A lot of tension,
yes.
Yeah.
So August 2nd, 1892, so 2 days before the murder, the Bordens had eaten some leftover swordfish for dinner, and the whole family was sick that evening. And remember, Emma was currently away visiting friends, so it's Andrew and Abby and Lizzie and Bridget, and a house guest that we will get into in a minute. So in the 1800s, food poisoning was pretty common, especially this time of year, and they called it the summer complaint, because obviously you don't have the same type of refrigeration and food safety as you do now, so if you're eating leftover food that hasn't been stored properly, food poisoning is going to happen a lot.
Yeah, especially the swordfish. I'm like, what did that smell like?
Right? Yeah. So the whole family was sick all throughout the night, and the next morning, Abby went to the doctor across the street and said that she thought she had been poisoned. Which, again, food poisoning was very common at this time, so it's a little unusual that she would think that something unusual had happened other than I ate day-old fish in August. So,
yeah.
So that evening, the whole family was sick again after eating mutton stew. So this could be, again, another case of food poisoning, or maybe they're just still kind of sick from the fish, and so, they're just not all the way better.
I've had, a food poisoning stomach bug. It's rough.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like, what kind of food poisoning is this? Because when I have food poisoning, I'm not leaving the bathroom.
Yeah.
So.
Exactly. So Lizzie had contacted her friend Alice Russell and said she believed the milk had been poisoned, and she mentioned some threats against her father by some unnamed men. So kind of setting up a little interesting story going on. And Alice also recalls Lizzie having a, quote, bad feeling that something bad was going to happen.
Yeah.
So this is before the murders happened. So both Lizzie and Abby have suggested something suspicious going on at this time.
And I did read Andrew. I'm pretty sure he was an undertaker. That was his business.
Uh-huh.
And apparently he has some kind of shady business dealings too.
Yes.
He would be like, oh, they don't fit in this coffin, I'll just chop their feet off and put them in. I read that story. I don't know how true it is. This is the 1800s, but
yeah.
Yeah, he kind of did some shady business dealings, so I don't think it's also unrealistic that maybe somebody had put something in their milk or done something also.
Yeah. That is true. So, on August 3rd, 1892, a man named Eli Bence was working at D.R. Smith's drugstore and reports that a woman came in trying to buy prussic acid. So, prussic acid is a diluted form of hydrocyanic acid, which is a colorless, odorless poison. And so this woman said that she needed this to put the edge on a sealskin cape. And so Bence told her that he couldn't sell it to her without doctor's orders, and he reports recognizing her as Miss Borden, and another customer at the time also commented about her being Andrew Borden's daughter. So now we have a couple of people the day before the murders saying that Lizzie was trying to buy poison. Mm-hmm. So back to the morning of the crimes. So they called in the doctor, so Dr. Bowen, and he initially believed that Abby Borden had died of fright after seeing her husband because she was face down on her knees in the guest room. And so, of course, nobody touched her when they first got there, and after her body was turned over, they saw that it was covered in coagulated blood. So obviously she did not die of fright.
Yeah.
And they noted that Andrew's blood had still been fresh, indicating that she had been murdered sometime before her husband. So this puts an interesting spin on things as well, because it's not appearing like they were murdered at the same time.
Yeah, it's not like someone breaking in and being like, I gotta kill you, I gotta kill you. It's I gotta kill you, there's some time.
Yes.
And then I kill you. So.
Exactly. So then it goes back to, motive, who, why, how did this come about, who is the intended victim, just a lot of questions. So the timeline of August 4th, according to Lizzie and Bridget, who are now the only two living members of the home, so I mentioned before that there was a house guest who stayed with them. So this was John V. Morse. So this is Emma and Lizzie's uncle, so their late mother's brother. So he had stayed with them the night before. So this morning, Andrew and Abby had breakfast at around 7 a.m. with John Morse, and he left around 8:45 to go visit friends nearby. So at 8:50, Lizzie had breakfast of cookies and coffee by herself. And at 9:15, Andrew left to attend business downtown, and Abby asked Bridget to wash the outside windows. So the police believe by 9:30, Abby went up to make the guest bed because, remember, her guest had left the night before, so she was putting fresh sheets on the bed, and they think that she was murdered around 9:30 in the morning, and it was clear that there were 19 blows of an axe, which is a lot. So
that's a lot.
Yeah. And that's another thing that's going to come up a lot in this case. It wasn't just, oh, let me murder you. It was like, this was way overkill.
Yeah.
So her skull was shattered, and a flap of the skin was actually, separated from the skull in the back of her head.
That's brutal.
Yeah. So Lizzie and Bridget both report that at 10:45 that morning, Andrew returned home and they remember the time because he was struggling to open the door because it had been deadbolted from the inside. And so Bridget reports that she saw Lizzie come down the stairs, which she would have walked right past the open guest bedroom door. Now remember, at this time, it's pretty clear that Abby is already dead. And so she lets Andrew into the door, and so he went up the back stairs to his bedroom, so he would not have passed by the guest room. And then he came back down, and he asked Lizzie where Abby was, and Lizzie reports telling him that she had received a note about the sick friend and went to visit her. So then he lays down on the sofa to take a nap, and the police believe that he was murdered between 10:45 and 11:45 a.m. by 10 blows of an axe.
Yeah.
So also overkill, but not quite as much as Abby. Abby was struck twice as many times. So Lizzie's story would assume that a murderer hid in the house undetected for an hour and a half.
And just stick around.
So that's a long time for someone to murder someone and then wait for Andrew to come home. And do you know what time Andrew is coming home? Or are you just speculating? If you did know what time he was coming home, why would you not wait till closer till he was there so you don't have to hide out?
Yeah, and the thing is, too, it's like Lizzie and Bridget are still around.
Yes.
Like, how did they not die? Like, if you're waiting to kill Andrew, like, why don't you kill Lizzie, too? Or Bridget? Like,
exactly. Like, kill the whole house and then you can wait undetected.
Yeah.
And also police thought it was strange that nobody heard Abby being murdered. So again, Lizzie and Bridget are both in the house at the time. Abby Borden weighed over 200 pounds. And I know later they have done tests where they've, dropped, a 200-pound dummy. Because, if you think, dead weight falling to the floor.
Yeah. And
you can see from the photos of her body being found that she just kind of went face down on the floor.
Yeah.
So that's going to make a lot of noise. Especially in an older house, that's going to shake the house. You're going to know that something happened upstairs.
Yeah, that's my thing, too, with the whole thing. It's somebody had to have heard that.
Yeah, exactly. Where was everyone? And so police originally believed this to be, a manic stranger because it was so violent. And again, this is a place that doesn't have a lot of violent crime like this. There was no blood on Lizzie or Bridget. And also, they were women, so the police can't think that they did it, obviously.
These poor little women, no way.
No way. And so a local doctor, Benjamin Handy, reported seeing a pale young man walking nervously on 2nd Street the morning of the murders. So again, this is a small town, so outsiders really stand out. So if you see somebody that you're like, oh, I don't know that person, then, you kind of automatically go to them as a suspect. He was ultimately ruled out, and police received a variety of unrelated tips, just kind of some strange things. Some people even turned themselves in, including a man who claimed to be the illegitimate son of Andrew. But apparently they were all quickly ruled out, which I don't know by what methods, but apparently pretty quickly they were like, no, it wasn't really you.
Yeah, I'll kind of talk about this alleged illegitimate son of Andrew later a bit, so.
Oh, good. I'm excited. Okay. And so a lot of people suspected the uncle, John Morse, but many people in town reported seeing him out and about multiple times that morning. So the doctor that had arrived originally to the bodies, his name was Dr. Bowen, so he displayed some suspicious behavior. So he was reportedly seen alone with Lizzie, so the town is questioning, are they romantically involved? Is there something going on here? But other people also said, she's now a woman who's completely alone, and, women can't be alone. He has to, escort her and things like that. So, I don't know. But there was also some questionable behavior the morning of the murders, such as when the police arrived and he shut the door and said that Lizzie needed a few minutes alone before she talked to the police. But this could also go back to a woman of the times where they're like, oh no, she's frightened. She just needs a moment to...
And that's the thing, too. If Lizzie did it. I'm not saying she did or didn't. But if, like, she did, she could be like, I'm just so flustered. I'm so flustered. Like, you could probably act that pretty well of being, like, a woman in hysterics. Like, it's not that hard to do
Especially in a time where all women were hysterical, they thought. So
you read a book, you're hysterical.
Yes.
You cry, you're hysterical.
And so police asked her about a pail of small towels that were covered in blood in the cellar. And so Dr. Bowen said, oh, Lizzie explained that to me. It's fine. Don't worry about it. So that's kind of funny because you're like, well, maybe you should give us more information. Well, later it was claimed to be menstrual blood. And so that would kind of make sense if that was true, because you didn't really talk about that then. So for all these male police officers to come in, like Lizzie had told the doctor, oh no, it was just my menstrual blood, don't worry about it. So then he's telling them, it's a doctor thing, it's fine, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
But Bridget later said that it could not have been menstrual blood because it had been there for 2 days and she would have washed it by then. So she's like, no, that's not true. So I don't know. And also, Dr. Bowen was seen tossing scraps of paper that had the word Emma on it into the kitchen stove. And so when the police asked him what he was doing, he said, oh, it's nothing, it's just a note about his daughter coming to visit. So people didn't believe that this doctor murdered Andrew and Abby, but they thought that he was covering up for someone.
Yeah.
So then suspicions go to Bridget Sullivan. And so at this time, Irish immigrants accounted for over 1/3 of those arrested. So this is between 1889 and 1893.
Wow.
Now keep in mind, this is those arrested. This doesn't necessarily mean that they committed the crimes. They're just a good scapegoat for the crime because people didn't like Irish immigrants then.
Yeah.
And Lizzie had said that Bridget had been outside washing windows at the time she discovered Andrew's body. So now, police turn to Lizzie as a suspect. So the police thought it was strange that she didn't seem overly upset, which maybe she used that time that Dr. Bowen gave her to kind of calm herself, and that's why she was able to not seem super upset.
Yeah, because, like, also, I feel like back then it was, like, all about appearances. Like, you weren't ever supposed to show, like, emotion or anything, and, like...
No.
As I said, I mean, it is not irrational to think a woman would have been sent to an insane asylum literally for crying.
Yes,
so
exactly.
She's probably like, gotta keep it together.
And especially a wealthy woman who's now even more wealthy because she just got a whole bunch of inheritance. But, especially of that stature, you don't really do that.
Yeah.
And so again, she claimed to be in the barn during the time of the murders, which I thought this was funny because the police said they couldn't find anything in the barn that would have kept her interest for 20 minutes. I was like, what? I can tell you I've gotten distracted by many things that probably would not keep other people's interest for more than 20 minutes, so we don't know what she was doing.
Also, what if she was, like, looking... Because didn't she say she was trying to make, like, a fishing hook thing? So what if she couldn't find what she was looking for?
Well, according to them, there wasn't enough stuff in there to go through for that long. But I'm like, that doesn't... But this will come up in a few minutes in the police inquest, so I'll dig a little deeper into that.
Okay.
And so there was also, this one is a pretty big factor, so there was no note from Abby's friend. So Lizzie said that Abby received a note from the sick friend and went out. So this is only coming from Lizzie. There's nothing else to back this up. So there is no note, and also no one ever came forward to say they either wrote the note or delivered the note. So that's interesting too, because you would think if there's a murder investigation, they're like, we're looking for someone who wrote this note. If you wrote the note, you would probably be like, oh yeah, that was me. But that never happened. And so Lizzie's estranged uncle told the newspaper that the murderer would be someone inside the home. So that's interesting. And Abby's brother-in-law believed that Lizzie and her uncle John Morse hired someone to kill the Bordens to get them out of the way. So got a couple of different ideas, theories going on here. So the day after the murders, Lizzie and Emma offered a $5,000 reward to anyone whose information would lead to the arrest and conviction of the killer.
Which is a lot of money back then.
Yeah. For that time, that was a lot of money, for sure.
Yeah.
And so the funeral was held on August 6th, and the autopsies were performed on August 11th, which I thought was super interesting, that the autopsies would be performed, 1, a week after the murders, and 2, after the funerals. So I don't know if that was a thing of the times, that you had to see, since they weren't able to maybe put the body back. But the bodies were so destroyed, how would they even be presentable for a funeral?
Well, yeah, my thing was also, like, I mean, they didn't even have good refrigeration for their food. I'm like, how decomposed are these bodies?
Yeah. Like...
But, I mean, what were autopsies back then? Were they just like, yep, he's dead?
Yep, there's...
like, I mean, you don't have, like,
19 blows? Okay, you're
You
done.
don't have toxicology, and you don't really have, like, the advanced reports. Like, they say it was an axe, but it could be anything with that shape.
Yeah.
I don't know what else has an axe shape, but, or like a hatchet, I don't know. Like,
Yeah. So, I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
And, again, it's the 1800s, so forensic science is very primitive. But the morning of the murders, the Borden family, the neighbor, the doctor, the police, all these people had just, like, traipsed through the house and the crime scene. So, even if they were able to get any kind of forensics, they probably wouldn't get anything. But one of the most interesting things is that there was no blood anywhere in the house except directly around the bodies. So now if you think you have 19 blows to Abby and 10 blows to Andrew of an axe, like, you're gonna have some blood spatter going on somewhere. Like,
yeah. And that's the thing, if you walk out of the room,
yes,
you're gonna have to be dripping blood.
Exactly, like, you're gonna have blood all over you. And so they did find the rags in the basement that were claimed to be menstrual blood, as well as a small drop on Lizzie's, like, undergarments, which again they claimed to be menstrual blood. But there was blood nowhere else, so it wasn't on the carpet in the other rooms. And like Courtney said, if you have this, like, you just brutally murdered these people and now you have to get away, you're gonna be dripping blood on something.
Yeah.
And so how was it cleaned up before? So if you were an outsider, I don't think you're going to care about cleaning it up. You're just going to get the hell out of there.
Yeah.
But if you lived inside the home, you would clean up your things to make sure that you weren't a suspect. It's just a little fishy.
It's very strange, yeah.
And so police also found a hatchet head in the bottom of a box of tools in the cellar. And so the handle had been broken off. And so police believed that it was broken recently, which I'm not sure how you can really tell that, but appeared to them to be broken recently, and it was covered in ash, which they thought that it had also been deliberately covered in ash and, like, hidden in junk, because I guess nothing else in the box had ash on it. Mm-hmm. So it was very weird that this one random thing would have ash and a bunch of ash, not just, like, a little bit of residue from before.
Yeah.
So they think that it was deliberately covered up there. And they did say that this blade was consistent with Andrew and Abby's wounds. So on August 9th, they held a police inquest, and it was supposed to be private, but the public and the media all knew about it because obviously this is a huge thing in the town at the time. And Bridget Sullivan testified about cleaning the breakfast dishes after Andrew and Abby ate that morning, and that she then went to go wash the windows. And Bridget also said that she saw Lizzie pass through the kitchen that morning and later went up the stairs and didn't see her again until she told her Andrew was dead. So this might conflict with Lizzie's testimony, or it could just be two people in a giant house who don't really know where the other person is all morning.
Yeah.
Who knows?
And especially because Bridget was, like, the maid, like, the servant, like,
yeah,
they're not gonna, like, hang out and talk, probably. Especially,
exactly.
like, how it seems, how Lizzie's attitude was about her status.
Yes.
I assume that she would be like, nope, goodbye. Like,
yep. And so the DA was Hosea Knowlton. And so Knowlton is questioning Lizzie, and he asks about any enemies. And Lizzie says that there was a man that was angry with her father because he refused to rent one of his properties to him, as well as an uncle that he was on bad terms with. And so they asked her about her relationship with her dad and her stepmother, and she says that she was cordial with her stepmother, but she called her Mrs. Borden instead of mother. But she's basically like, yeah, well, our relationship was fine. And so they had Lizzie confirm that that morning she had been wearing a navy blue skirt and blouse, but had changed into a pink wrapper afterwards. And I looked this up because I'm like, what is a wrapper? So it was kind of like a house coat type item.
okay.
Which would also make sense if, like I said, that would make sense to me if, like, you just found your parents brutally murdered and you just want to relax, and so you're like, I'm going to take off. Because if you think about what dresses were then, like, they're not comfortable. They're like corsets and petticoats and this huge thing, and it's August, and you're like, I just want to relax and put on this house coat.
Yeah,
so,
that's what I was thinking. I was like, she was probably sweating, like in a big old skirt and a blouse, like.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm gonna make myself comfortable to deal with this situation. And so Lizzie recounts her account of that morning, and she said that she had decided to iron some handkerchiefs, and so she was reading through a couple of magazines while she waited for the iron to heat up. And she said that Abby had then gone upstairs to change the sheets on the guest bed. And so when they asked her, like, what took Abby so long, she's like, I mean, I don't know, like, maybe she went to go change her sheets or something. But, as we mentioned before, all of the bedrooms were locked during the day, so she would have had to come back downstairs where Lizzie supposedly was and get the key to go back upstairs and change her own sheets. So, according to Lizzie's testimony, she was gone for quite a while to be changing sheets, which I'm not sure how that ties in with her leaving to go visit the friend, because...
Yeah, it seems kind of contradicting.
I don't think Lizzie really specified... Oh, there's a lot of contradictions. So...
Oh, I know.
And then she's like, well, maybe she was using the sewing machine at one point, but then she's like, well, no, I didn't hear any noise. And at one point, Lizzie says that she is upstairs when her father returns home, but at another point, she says that she's downstairs. So they basically just go in circles. So the DA is asking her the same questions, like phrased in different ways, and Lizzie's giving slightly different answers, and she's saying that she either doesn't remember, or she's like, oh, I don't understand the question, or if she's called out for giving different information, she's like, oh, I just misunderstood what you were asking.
I wonder, too, because today, like, they kind of talk about if someone is, like, saying a story like the same exact way every time, they think it's kind of rehearsed.
Yeah.
And that they think it's kind of normal for like little things to be off. So I wonder like if this was today, like how this interview would be interpreted versus then. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like her being like, well, I don't know, maybe I was upstairs. I don't know, maybe I was out, you know. And also it's like they probably didn't really care about time. It's like, oh, the sun's up, we're awake, the sun's down, we're asleep.
Yeah.
So maybe she was like, I don't know how long I was there. What's time? I don't know.
And also, if you're thinking about, like, just a morning at home, doing chores and stuff like that, like, I know times as far as, like, when I leave and stuff like that, but, you know, if I spend a whole day at home and you're like, give me a minute-by-minute account of what you were doing, I don't know, I did this, and then I did that, and maybe I did this first or after, I don't remember, like, it's... So it wouldn't be unusual to not be able to give, like, an exact answer for all of that. And so Lizzie says that after her father got home was when she went out to the barn to find the lead to make the sinkers for the fishing line. And she said that she stopped to pick a pear from a pear tree on the way. And she said that she was in the barn for about 15 to 20 minutes. And when they asked what took so long, she said that she, like, stopped and ate her pear while she was looking for this lead.
How far was the barn from the house? Was it, like, immediately out back, or was it like a little bit of a walk? Do you know?
I don't know. I mean, it sounds like it wasn't like super far.
Yeah.
Well, she said that she heard a noise, which is why she came out of the barn. So it had to have been fairly close.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know also, you know, this is Massachusetts too, so I'm from the South, so I'm thinking everyone has like 50 acres of property. But you know, sometimes like it takes like a few minutes to walk to the barn too, so it's like, how close is it like you walk out the back door and there's the front door to the barn, or, you know?
I'm not sure. I mean, it had to have been close enough if she says she went back to the house because she heard a noise.
Yeah, definitely.
And so the DA just, like, couldn't believe that she would just, like, stop her work to eat a pear. Like, that was something that the book mentioned, that he was just like, what are you talking about? Like...
She just want a little snack.
Right? And I put in my notes, I was like, well, call me a criminal for the number of times I've stopped chores to eat a snack. Like...
Yeah, it's like...
But they also said that, he may have not understood this because he just couldn't imagine the life of, like, a wealthy woman then, because, you know, to, like, the working class, you would know exactly what you did every day. Like, you would have a very structured day, you were very busy, like, you wouldn't just, like,
That's true.
Sit around and do nothing. And she's describing this day where she's like, yeah, well, I waited for the iron to heat up and I read some magazines, and then I was like, well, I'll go make a fishing line for a fishing trip sometime in the future that I don't really need to do right now, but why not? And I'll stop and eat a pear. It's just this life of leisure that he just, like, couldn't fathom.
Yeah, which makes sense too, because it's like the sun's up, you're trying to get as much work done as you can. And so her just being like, I stopped and ate a pear, being like, wait, what? Like, you're not like, just trying to, like, get it done.
Yeah, so he just, like, couldn't understand that. But they did also say that the barn would have been extremely hot and that she wasn't likely to have spent 15 to 20 minutes in the barn in that heat. So I'm like, okay, I think that's a fairly good point. Yeah. You know, especially it's August and we know what their outfits look like.
And she probably would have been so sweaty, too, when she came back out, just, like, covered in sweat.
Exactly. And so at the police inquest, John Morse testified that Andrew had spoken to him about making a will, but they were unable to find a will in his safe with his other important papers. And the clerk at the drugstore testified that Lizzie Borden had tried to purchase prussic acid the day before the murders, and 3 additional witnesses testified to Lizzie being the one in the store, but Lizzie denies it and says she never went in the store and tried to buy prussic acid. And now Lizzie reports a few suspicious men that she had previously seen lurking around the house. And, you know, they didn't really come up before, but now she's like, well, maybe these are some things that happen. And so the family friends testified to the hostility between Lizzie and Emma and Andrew and Abby, and basically the police are making it clear that it would be almost impossible for anyone to have entered the house without Lizzie and Bridget knowing, and that there would have been nowhere to hide unseen for an hour and a half between when Abby was killed and when Andrew was killed. And especially with neither Lizzie or Bridget reporting hearing anything that morning, other than the one noise that she heard that she came out of the barn, but she just mentioned that the day of the murders, and that doesn't really come back up again. So,
yeah.
So on August 11th, Lizzie was arrested for the murders of Andrew and Abby Borden. So her quote-unquote keeper, which I thought that was interesting, because I'm like, what is that? So I guess it's someone in like because women weren't really imprisoned often, like she had her own room, and so they didn't really have people who would guard women in prison, so they like hired this person to be like her keeper.
Gotcha.
And it was the mother of a childhood friend, so she like knew her. And I thought this was funny that she was allowed to order dinner from the local hotel. Like, so she's like, you're stuck in this room, but it's like a nice room, and you can order out dinner and whatever. But the local chapter of the Young Persons Society Christian Endeavor and chapters of the Women's Christian Temperance Union sent sympathy and telegrams of support and believed that she was innocent. Because Lizzie did do a lot of charity work in the Christian community, and she was really involved with a lot of committees and just a lot of volunteer stuff. So they did, like, you know, provide support that they believed that she was innocent.
Yeah. And so the trial did start on June 5th in 1893. Many women did come to watch because it was so unusual for a woman to be tried for murder. And her jury was all male because women were not allowed on the jury at the time. And just a little historical fact for you, women would not be allowed on juries in Massachusetts until 1951.
1951.
Yeah, women got the right to vote in what, like 1920?
Yeah.
But you couldn't serve on a jury. Like,
crazy.
That's crazy. So then the prosecution brings the skulls of Andrew and Abby into the courtroom.
Nope.
And so Lizzie faints, which, understandable.
I probably would too.
Yeah. Especially are they just like, here's your father.
Right?
What? And I mean, at that time too, like, people were probably fascinated by crimes, but they weren't like, look at this skull, like we do now on the internet.
Like, nope.
So there were no defensive wounds or signs of a struggle. So they really thought this meant the victims knew their attacker, at least for Abby, because they think Andrew was probably asleep when he was attacked.
Yeah.
So the motive for Lizzie would be if Andrew was killed first, part of his money would probably go to Abby and her family. But if she takes Abby out first, Lizzie and Emma get all of their father's money when he dies. And many were really suspicious, like, could Lizzie possess the physical strength to murder her parents with an axe? Because she's a woman, and women are delicate, I guess. But medical experts testified that a woman of average build would be able to do so. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I've seen pictures of Lizzie. She's not like fat, but she's not like a twig.
She's not a dainty woman.
Yeah, she's a little stout. Like, she could probably, you know. And the prosecution was not allowed to bring up the prussic acid testimony. So Lizzie's friend, Alice Russell, testified prior to the murders about how Lizzie had a bad feeling, like something was going to happen. And then she also said Lizzie had burned the address the Sunday after the murders. And I think the murders happened on like a Tuesday, I think I was reading.
Something like, maybe a Thursday. It was definitely a day during the week.
Like during the week. Like this is pretty, like a few days after.
Yeah.
And Lizzie and Emma both were like, oh, that dress had paint on it. We just decided to burn it. Alice told her, like, she wouldn't let anyone see her do that, like, if she were her. Like, be careful burning a dress that has supposed paint on it so soon.
Yeah, like, Alice says that she told her before she burned it, like, that might make you look suspicious to kind of get rid of that thing of, like, oh, well, maybe she just didn't think about how that would look. And Alice is like, well, I told her beforehand how that would look.
And obviously, I live in a different century, but I've had clothes with paint on it. I don't really burn them. I mean, could you not? I mean, maybe that was typical. I really don't know. I'm not a historical expert. Like, maybe they were like, if I don't want this anymore, I just burn it, because you don't really have landfills or trash pickup. But very weird to me.
Yeah, very weird.
So police testified they didn't find a dress covered in either blood or paint during the search of the home. So if she just, innocently had a paint-stained dress, like, where was it during this search? Like, what's happening here?
To me, that's a big, indicator of Lizzie's guilt. Like, the burning of the dress, and also that the police are like, we never found a dress that had paint on it. Why would you hide this random dirty dress during the police search if there was nothing wrong with it?
Yeah, that's the thing, too, is I'm like, I feel like if my parents were murdered, I live in the house, and I'm about to do this, I would go to the police and be like, look, can you please document that this has paint on it? And that's why, I swear, if I was even assumed that I killed someone, I'd be texting the police, hey, I'm leaving my house, I'm going to Walmart, be back in an hour and a half.
I'll show you my receipt.
Here's my receipt, here's everywhere, here's everything, I'm taking the trash out, here's a picture of each item.
Which also at the time, I can imagine that maybe she wouldn't think about that at all.
Yeah.
But...
Because, again, we have all this, knowledge of true crime now.
Yes.
We're all fascinated, and she's probably just whatever, back to regular life.
Yeah.
So, police did testify that the front door was locked and bolted, and all the upstairs bedrooms except the guest room were locked with the key downstairs. And so then, during the trial, one police officer is like, yeah, I remember finding the handle to the hatchet, and I put it back. And now the prosecution's like, really? What? We are claiming that she broke the hatchet, burned the handle, and then covered the blade in ash to appear to be an old broken hatchet. If the handle's present, this ruins all of our what we're saying happened, and it really doesn't hold the same significance.
Yes.
So, but no other officers are testifying to finding the handle.
Mm-hmm.
And the house was searched again, and the handle wasn't found. So,
yep.
Who knows what happened there?
Who knows?
So the defense is really playing up to Lizzie's womanhood. She's a woman. How could she do this? She can't kill. She's a dainty little woman. And
women don't murder.
And I put in my notes, I was like, just imagine the people of this day coming to 2020, and there's a whole TV show dedicated to women who snap and kill people.
Yep.
So it can happen. If anyone's watched Snapped, they know.
Yes.
So.
And I was thinking the other day, too, I feel like we've covered a lot of women murderers, and
yeah,
I feel like a good number of our cases have been about women, where typically it's in the minority.
Yeah, definitely. Because, it happens. Anyone can commit a crime. So.
Yep.
And so Emma testified that it was her idea to burn the dress covered with paint, trying to make it seem less suspicious.
Mm-hmm.
And so Lizzie never testified, but during the closing argument, she did say, I am innocent. I leave it to my counsel to speak for me. And then on June 20th, the jury reached a verdict of not guilty in less than 2 hours. And there were cheers in the courtroom, and they could be heard outside as well.
Yep.
So after this, no one was ever charged with the murders. So who killed Andrew and Abby? Let's go to speculation corner here. Let's talk about all our suspects.
Let's do it.
Okay, so the police still speculate Lizzie killed them and was just acquitted, which is a real possibility. We've seen this happen.
Yep.
And so we haven't brought this up before because it's speculation, that Andrew had sexually abused Lizzie and Emma for their whole lives, that there was a lot of incest, a lot of bad relationships with them. And that could kind of go along with a motive that Lizzie was just sick of the abuse, so she killed her father, but it really doesn't add up to me because she killed Abby first. Mm-hmm. So if it's an in the moment, I'm so sick of this crime, why are you going to kill Abby and then an hour and a half later kill Andrew?
Yeah.
But tied in with the money motive, it could hold true because she's like, I'm sick of the abuse, I want the money, let me kill Abby, kill Andrew, boom, done. So
yeah.
To me, if those are her motive, it's premeditated all the way. It's not in the moment.
Yes.
But a lot of people and a lot of scholars really, really think she's innocent. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about who could have done it. Another suspect is the other person who would have had financial gain, and that's Emma. So Lizzie and Bridget were the only ones in the house, and they say she was in a different city, but it doesn't really mean that she didn't know anything about it or didn't have a plan to do it by someone else. It doesn't mean she couldn't have hired someone or known about it or
been involved in some way.
Yeah. So then there was a man who claimed to be the illegitimate son of Andrew who confessed. So he said, I'm the son of Andrew, and a woman who was later committed to an insane asylum. So 8 days after the crime, he confessed, and he wrote it in like a letter. And he said, Abby had convinced her husband to stop paying his son like his yearly stipend for his silence. So he was like, I'm going to kill them. And he said he disposed of the murder weapon, which was a lather's hatchet, by dropping it from a steamboat at a dock. And he's like, I'm mailing this and you're never going to find me. However, there's no proof the man was actually any relation to Andrew or how authentic the letter was, because you could probably get a lot of this information from the newspaper.
Yeah.
And it doesn't fully add up, because if you're mad that you're not getting your yearly stipend, well, if you kill him, you're not going to get any money.
Yeah, like, you're not in the will, you're an illegitimate son, so you're not going to get anything if he's dead.
Yeah, so, I mean, unless it's just pure revenge.
Yeah, just anger.
I don't know, but there's no proof at all. So, another suspect is someone else who was in the house in the days leading up, and that's John Morse. And so that was Lizzie and Emma's uncle. So, a lot of this theory does come from a self-published book by Rich Little and Beverly Folstad, which was called Cold Case to Case Closed. So, just kind of remember that. I mean, a lot of everything from this time is speculation, so as long as nothing was too crazy, I was like, I'm going to include it. So they're saying Andrew and John had been business partners for a while. And they think that the night before, John and Andrew had gotten into a fight because Morse was starting to lose money. So they think he killed Abby like as an act of rage while she was cleaning up the guest room he had stayed in. And so to obtain his alibi, he came back, like he left the house and then came back and killed Andrew. Because people in the town did say, we saw him out and about. And I'm like, wouldn't you be covered in blood? Like, how many sets of clothes do you have to change
And where
into?
did you put the bloody clothes?
Yeah.
If you did quickly murder them and then run to town to be seen to have an alibi, you probably would have put the bloody clothes somewhere between the house and town.
Yeah, but I mean, there was time between. Maybe he was the one cleaning it up to be like, clean this up, clean me up, whatever. So he said he was visiting his niece at the time of the murders, and that he arrived at the Borden house at 12, but then he later changed it and said 11:30, and then later changed it again and said 11:20. So, and they kind of speculate, like, he killed Andrew because Andrew would know, like, I'm the one who killed his wife. So he's, like, killed Abby and then was like, well, crap, now Andrew's gonna know I did this, so I have to kill him. And there's also speculation that Morse was sleeping with Bridget, and apparently his original room he stayed in was, like, near her room.
Interesting.
But that's speculation. There's no real evidence either way. And he was never questioned after he stated his alibi, even though there were the inconsistencies, like the time. And, like, he says, like, I mailed this letter at this place, but that was inconsistent. Like, it wasn't really accurate. But after the murders, he just moved to Iowa, and he never returned to Fall River. Which is kind of weird, because your nieces are there, unless I guess he thought they had something to do with it. I mean, they did say he was closer with Emma than Lizzie, but you would still think they would see each other at some point.
Yeah, he would, like, visit.
Okay, so speaking of Bridget, Bridget is also a suspect. She was not treated very well by the Bordens. They called her Maggie.
Yep.
Because that was the name of the old maid. So they didn't even really bother to say her name. They were just like, Maggie. And she's like, yeah.
She's like, I guess I'll answer to this. Yeah. That was so absurd.
Yeah. I was like, really, guys? So it was like her day to, like, wash the windows. And she says she doesn't see anyone come in or out. I read on a few different articles that she said that she was resting in her room when Lizzie called out and was, like, saying her father was dead. So I don't really know, because there was a few articles that was, like, her account and how she was like, yeah, I was just laying down, I didn't hear anything, and then Lizzie's saying my father's dead. And I was like, what? Like, this isn't, like, a quiet crime. Either of them are not quiet.
Yeah.
Like, so, yeah, she's at the house the whole day, hears nothing, and there is a lot of speculation that Lizzie and Bridget were in on it together. You know, maybe Lizzie was like, I can pay you a lot of money. You can just go wherever. But I'm really not sure. And it does seem after the murders, Bridget moved to a different state and she got married.
Yep.
So. And then finally, it could have been a stranger. It could have been like a random townsperson, a serial killer. I mean, who really knows? Like, it does seem Andrew had some shady business dealings. So maybe he screwed someone over. Mm-hmm. They were pissed. It's hard to tell, and, like, there's so little record from this time.
Yeah.
And, like, as you can tell, like, on the internet and many books, like, everyone thinks Lizzie did it. Mm-hmm. So they don't really care about other options.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Basically, those are our suspects. Lizzie, to me, does seem the one with the best motive, opportunity, all that. Mm-hmm. But did she do it? I really don't know. So, after the trial, Lizzie and Emma do briefly return to the house, but they do end up purchasing a 14-room Queen Anne-style home on the hill, yep. which they called Maplecroft, So Lizzie's getting her house on the hill.
Mm-hmm. And 14 rooms for 2 people.
It's a lot of rooms.
It's a lot of rooms.
Yeah, so...
when I buy a house, can I give it a name like the Maplecroft?
Yes, please do.
Okay. I'll name the estate.
I know. That sounds... This is a little off topic, but I was watching My Lottery Dream Home. Kevin and I watched that a lot. And this woman had, like... He'd shown her all these houses, and then she was like, actually, I want to build my own house. So he was like, okay, throw all those houses out.
Never mind.
So she, like, built it, and then she was like, we're calling it Sapphire Farm. Like, she named it. I was like, okay.
I'm going to name my house. Y'all stay tuned.
So they were really wealthy, and they were just living the life Lizzie always dreamed of. She had her servants. She had her modern conveniences. I'm sure she didn't have to go outside to take a shit, so she was really happy.
Yep.
And they did build a lavish 10-foot tall monument for Andrew and Abby's graves.
Wow.
And they spent $2,000 on it. So I looked it up, and today that would be $57,000.
Which is insane.
That is a lot of money.
But think about how much money Andrew was worth that they could buy this 14-room house and build this lavish monument and still live the lavish lifestyles that they lived. Like, yeah. This guy had a lot of money.
A lot of money, yeah. So, at this point, Lizzie does not want to be called Lizzie anymore. She wants to be called Lizbeth, and she really wants to start new. Mm-hmm. But Fall River really wasn't going to let her forget her past. So Maplecroft did become like a target for children. They'd prank there, throw things at it. They would just stand outside and taunt her. Mm-hmm. And I think they would even kind of say like, the Lizzie Borden took an axe, like kind of thing. So, and then after this, her friends just kind of abandoned her. Church members avoided her. They were all just kind of like, ugh. Newspapers kind of even wrote articles saying how she got away with it. So... Also, in 1897, Lizzie was accused of shoplifting while visiting, like, Rhode Island. Mm-hmm. So then she became even more isolated within Maplecroft. So because Fall River just wouldn't give her a break, she started traveling frequently to New York and Boston and Washington, D.C., and just other places so that she could go see shows and shop, because she really loved to, like, go and watch shows and go to the theater. And she also began throwing really, like, lavish parties with her new friends. She's like, party house. Mm-hmm. So she became friends with an actress called Nance O'Neill, who was really popular back then. So they called her the American Bernhardt. So Bernhardt was Sarah Bernhardt, who was a famous French stage actress. And she starred in many popular French plays, and she even played some male roles.
Wow.
And I thought that was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
So I included it.
Because at the time, a lot of, like, men played the female roles because men were in everything. So that's interesting. I like that.
Nance was, like, really popular in American theaters. So they met in Boston around 1904, and they were really close friends. And there were rumors that they were actually in a sexual relationship. So there's a lot of rumors that Lizzie was, like, a lesbian, but... never confirmed. And a lot of people also accused Nance of just taking advantage of Lizzie and her money, which could be a thing. So Emma did grow really frustrated with Lizzie and all that was going on, and she did end up just moving out of Maplecroft in 1905. And she said she didn't leave until conditions became absolutely unbearable. whatever that means.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if she was, like, sick of the parties. I know in a lot of, like, fictional things, it's like Emma finally realized Lizzie did it and wanted to leave, but those are fictional.
Yeah.
So they did remain estranged for the rest of their lives. After a year of illness with pneumonia, Lizzie died in June 1927 at age 66. And then Emma died a little bit more than a week later. It did appear that Emma had some kidney trouble that led to her death. So I did end up seeing like her record of death, and they listed it as chronic nephritis and senility.
Oh.
Basically, you got kidney trouble and you're old. Because she was like 10 years older than Lizzie, I think it was.
Something like that.
Yeah.
It was a pretty big difference, yeah.
Because I think she died when she was like 76, so...
which is really old for that time.
Yeah. So Emma did ask to be laid to rest beside Andrew, Abby, and Sarah. So basically it was like Andrew in the middle, Sarah was on one side, Abby was on the other, and now Emma is foot to foot with Sarah, and Lizzie is foot to foot with Andrew. So that's the way they were buried.
And it's so fascinating to me that these estranged sisters died a week apart when they were 10 years apart in age. Like, that's just so bizarre.
Yeah, because Emma was living in, like, Rhode Island. Like, they were just, like, separate completely. Also, I thought this was really interesting. So I was looking at old news articles, and I was reading up on, like, how Lizzie and Emma died, because I wanted to make sure I was, like, accurate in what I'm telling you guys. So I came across a 1927 article, and it was talking about how Lizzie killed her parents, Andrew and Sarah. So, clearly someone didn't fact check.
Nope. Or maybe baby Lizzie also killed Sarah.
Yeah, maybe.
That didn't happen, guys. That was a joke.
Yeah, but I think it just goes to show, like, during this time, there's such a lack of record, or what we have, it's like, is this accurate? Because, I mean, this was in a newspaper that was just wrong. So, it's really hard with these old cases, but we're going to tell you everything we can. We're not saying everything that we said is 100% accurate, because, again, people say stuff all the time. But, so... the Borden family home is now a popular bed and breakfast, which I really want to go to.
Yes.
You can, like, stay the night there or just tour it, which, here's a little, like, side note at the end. Like, Kevin and I have been talking about, like, where we want to go on our honeymoon. And my current top choice is we want to, like, drive up to Massachusetts and go to, like, Boston and all, like, these historical areas. Yeah. And I just really want to stay at this house for a night. It's, like, on my bucket list, so I'm like... come on, Kevin, let's go here.
How does Kevin feel about that?
He's fine. He doesn't really believe in ghosts or anything like that, so he doesn't really care. But yeah, so he's just like, whatever, if you want to do that, fine. I don't really care. I don't believe anything's gonna haunt me or get me, so.
Doesn't really care one way, yeah. I don't know. I don't know if I want to stay the night. Like, I like to tour, but I don't know if I want to stay the night. It just feels so, like, eerie and...
you can stay in, like, it's called now, like, the John B. Morse room, which is where Abby was killed. Like, you can stay in that room.
Nope.
But I don't want to.
Nope.
But you can also, there's, like, rooms, like, up in the attic, I think, that are, like, not anything happened
Not
there.
murder rooms.
So, I don't want to stay in one of the murder rooms, because I do kind of believe in ghosts and hauntings, and, yeah. But I think it would be really fun.
Yeah, that'd be cool. So that is the murders of Andrew and Abby Borden. And did Lizzie do it? I don't know. We don't know.
Yeah. Let us know your thoughts. I really want to know.
Yeah.
So maybe when we post the story for the post, I'll be like, did Lizzie do it? Yes or no? And we can get your guys' votes. Please vote on it, too, also. Please.
Yes. Thank you.
Be fun.
We see that you guys see it. Vote on it, please.
Yeah. We see it all, guys. But, yeah, so just let us know, like, what your thoughts are. If you think there's something we didn't bring up, what we should have, or something that we said that's just completely wrong, which could happen.
Again, we tried to get as accurate information as we can for how long ago it was. And like we said, a lot of the, what would quote-unquote be accurate sources now were completely wrong about things that we know now. So... I don't know. So that's all the information that's out there. So maybe some of the evidence that points to Lizzie was portrayed inaccurately. Yeah. Maybe some of the other theories were portrayed inaccurately. We don't know. But it's definitely something.
Yeah, that's why I tried to say too, like, you know, a lot of this is speculation. A lot of this is just like what people are saying. So as long as nothing was too I did see someone saying they knew Emma did it because she came to her in a dream and confessed and all this. So
yeah.
I didn't include that because that's a little out there. But like these people who wrote the book about John Morse, it was like things that were like, okay, I mean, this could be true.
Yeah,
so
for sure. Yeah, so let us know what you guys think. And Courtney, what is your perk of the week?
Okay, my perk of the week might sound a little stupid, but it's a little bit like a quarantine perk of the week. So mine is Walmart pickup. So I've used Walmart pickup before and I love it because I get really agitated going to the store. I get and especially now, all people are asking you to do is wear a mask and stay 6 feet apart, and they have little arrows telling you which way to go down the aisles, and nobody does it. Nope. And I get so mad. I get so annoyed, and I try not to, but you have the mask on suffocating you, and then everyone's annoying you. Mm-hmm. So on Friday I looked and I was like, ooh, there's Walmart pickup for tomorrow. I'm doing it. It was so nice to just be able to not have any contact with anyone, get my groceries, get out. It was so nice. Thank you so much to the amazing employees at Walmart who do that for us and risk their lives every day during this time. You guys are super important. You're essential. Thank you so much. You deserve the highest pay. Well, maybe not the highest, but you know what I'm saying. Higher pay. So.
Yes, absolutely. For sure.
There we go. So, Jaclyn, what is your perk of the week?
So my perk of the week, which I'm sure Courtney already knows because I sent her about 18 texts about it yesterday. So last night. So yesterday, Andrew and I went and picked up lunch at this place called Kava, which is kind of like a Chipotle for Mediterranean food. So you pick your rice and your greens and your protein, and then you get hummus and sauce, and it's just delicious. And so, obviously everywhere is takeout only. So we picked it up, and it was a really pretty day. So I was like, oh, Andrew, there's a park 2 blocks away. Let's go to this park. Because I've seen it before, but we've never been to it. And this park was fantastic, and it's this huge park, and there's a fountain in the middle, and there were people there, but everyone was super far apart, and everyone was being very respectful. And they have a little coffee shop in the middle, and there's some tables and chairs outside. And so we were able to go sit and have a picnic and eat our lunch at these tables and chairs. And they have a their water fountain has the regular water fountain, and it also has a doggy water fountain at the bottom. And as anyone who knows me knows, I carry a reusable water bottle with me everywhere I go.
We're leaving the house and we're going to a restaurant 5 minutes down the road. She's got to bring her water bottle.
Guys, I was thirsty, okay? I don't know what to tell you. So, and they have the water bottle filling stations, which are just my absolute favorite things, because when you try to fill a water bottle with a water fountain, you can only get it halfway full before it starts dumping back out, and it's just so annoying. So, very happy about that. Also, side note, if the girl who was there is listening to this, please come be my friend, because there was a girl at a table close enough to us, again, everyone was socially distant, but this girl whips out a full bottle of wine out of her purse and then pulls out this giant Tupperware of spaghetti. And
that sounds like me.
I'm just can I be your friend? You look like fun. So anyway, so it was just a nice picnic, and we got to see a new park, and yeah, it was very nice.
Yeah, that sounds nice. If things ever open up and we're ever allowed to travel again, you're going to have to take me to that restaurant, because that sounds really good.
It is so good, Courtney. So
I'm real hungry right now.
So thank you guys for listening.
Yes, thank you. And if you want to find us on Instagram, that's Caffeinated Crimes Pod. If you want to email us, you can email us at caffeinatedcrimespod@gmail.com. If you love us, if you can't get enough, if you want that bonus content and you want to support us, you can go to patreon.com/caffeinatedcrimes. And please do not forget, we are doing a contest right now. As soon as we get to 100 followers on Instagram and we get 50 Apple Podcast reviews, we'll select 2 people, 1 from each site, and give them a sticker and a pin and a $10 gift card to the coffee shop of their choice.
Yep.
We can do Starbucks, we can do Dunkin', we can do local business, whatever your local coffee shop is. We just want to give you free coffee, so tell your friends about us, review us. And so, yeah, everyone, go have a cup of coffee.
And don't commit a crime.